Yes, this is John from All Points TV, and today we have the pleasure of being in the house here with us is Robert Stewart. He is a write-in candidate for the Genesee County Drain Commissioner, and that's a seat currently held by Jeffrey Wright, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, now,
For a long time.
anyway, that's interesting. We've had a couple of people come in during the course of this election cycle who are write-in candidates. And so that's like, seems kind of a current trend. So, I mean, we'll go into your background and everything else, and I think people could be impressed by your background, and we'll go from there. But what prompted you to become a write-in candidate?
Well, let me first say that the young people today, that's probably because of the young people. They would prefer a nonpartisan candidate. I think a lot of people are tired with the Republicans, Democrats, and all the bickering going on. They really want to get something done, and not the same old Me Too cookie cutter politics and a lot of verbiage and not getting things done. So what really got me, I ran for mayor in 1985, and I wanted to make Auto World into the world center of water and environmental technology, and moved City Hall to that facility and put in different types of basketball and rollerblading and different types of activities for community. And that center did eventually get made. You can go to it in Toronto, Canada, and the World Center of Water and World Technology is there. I'm not sure they called it the same thing. But then in '96, I ran as a Democrat. I was a Democrat at that time. I voted for JFK, and that was kind of an investigation for Attorney General Frank Kelly. He wanted to know a little bit about the underpinnings of Flint, and I had been involved, so I did what I could. Tony Ragnon was friends. We weren't, personal friends, but we knew each other pretty well. And I was in his office one day, and I said, "Tony, when are you going to retire?" And he says, "I raised a lot of money for the party." And when Tony did pass, then there was an appointment process, which I was part of. That would have been in about 87. And then ever since then, I've run almost every 4 years to promote my concepts and ideas of moving forward for Genesee County. What really got me, though, was early on when this thing all started with Flint. Even before that, he was in a radio talk show opposite me, and he raised up his hands and he said, "I have no jurisdiction in Flint, Michigan," quote unquote. That really got under my skin. And I think it should for the residents here. And that's really what gives me the drive. And then things just got worse. They went downhill. We were doing quite fine with GLEWA, with getting water from Detroit. There wasn't too much upset. Granted, we had infrastructure problems, but those weren't uncovered, and we certainly didn't have the kind of problems that we've had first with E. coli, coliforms, Legionella, and various forms of things undetected. And then the lead issue came up with some copper issues. And here we are changing pipes. And so here I am again. I could just, I went in June, I think 24th was the cutoff date to sign up as a write-in. And I was afraid that if Jeff Wines didn't win it, that again, Jeff Wright would be unopposed. So I just couldn't, just not within myself to let that go that way. So here I am making the battle again.
Well, I'm looking at your resume online, and by the way, I'm going to provide the link for this after we get this uploaded to YouTube. But this is available from vote411 qualifications.org. And here's like a list of your qualifications is next to Jeffrey Wright, the current commissioner. And this is impressive. You get education. You have a BS in chemistry, MS in marketing, organization behavior, 800 level advanced, abnormal and industrial psychology, EPA lead certificates and health risk assessment, inspection, project design, and lead abatement, OSHA certified person, engineer, drawing, water and waste plant design, and construction. Physical chemistry, lab, microbiological, XRF certified. If anybody wants to go to this site, but I'll read off some of the qualification for Jeff Wright. Now, he's a drain commissioner. Okay, okay. Now, all the stuff that you're connected to you, I would say more relevant for being a drain commissioner, dealing with water, watershed problems, probably dealing also with pollution, and also that stuff coming from agricultural sources, all that, right?
Right.
Okay, and he wrote this up and submitted it to this organization, I assume. His education is graduate of Atherton High School, Genesee Area Skill Center, Architecture Program, Ferris State University, School of Architecture, Ferris State University, OSHA Federal Training Guidelines Program. And he also has listed here 43 years of experience working in Genesee County Drain Commissioner's office, 20 years served as a Genesee County Drain Commissioner, Chief Executive Officer for the Karagandhi Water Authority. And that's a big issue right there. I mean, the KWA, he's involved in that, and I would have a real question if a public official, why isn't bringing up bringing up the charges of conflict of interest?
Right.
I mean,
Let's go back to the first part there.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ferris State. I'm
Right.
told he didn't graduate. But if you go down to the next section, it says what are my concerns and what will I do?
Right.
And number one is that there should be qualifications for this job. You should at least have a college degree in chemistry, microbiology, biology, anthropology, engineering, something that is pertinent to health and safety. Right now, there are no qualifications. Anybody can run for this position, and I think it really sheds a light on the issues here in Flint, the issues here in Genesee County, because without that, you just don't know. You don't know to even ask a question. You don't know. My chemistry professor always used to tell me, see what you're looking at. Well, you can't see what you're looking at if you don't understand what to look for, or when something hits you, to understand that you should put that in your brain and massage it and spit it back out in some sort of semblance of what to do for community. So the KWA, as I understand it, is a privately held utility. This means, the government has influence to it. They do have quality control issues, guidelines and things, but it's a privately held utility. So what's going on the East Coast and the West Coast is privatization of water plants. So if the plant cost $287 million to put up after 3, 4, 5 years, and the revenues are stabilized and it looks like a good investment, the value of that investment goes up to $600 million. So the question comes up, what happens to the other $320 million? So I just bring that up to allude to, kind of hitchhike on, see what you're looking at. So when somebody tells you it's a privately held utility, what is that? And who owns it in 5 years if it comes up for sale? Who gets that money? Does it go to the investor? I don't know. I don't want to. It's not 5 years from now, so I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
But just think. Okay.
That's what I had problems with. I mean, I heard that too, that long ago that he was connected to the KWA authority or whatever, and I wanted okay, isn't he the elected public official? And I heard rumblings about it having a cash incentive, cash, forward looking that way. And that concerned me because
So you're concerned whether he's actually getting a paycheck from KWA?
Yeah.
Or getting some portion of an investment as time goes on?
Right.
In the KWA. These things should be thought about and looked at.
because I mean, I'm a libertarian politically. When I mean, I believe in privatization of certain things that the government does do. But I remember when this started happening, the water crisis. People addressed me in postings on Facebook and other social media outlets, and they asked me about, was a libertarian, do you think this would be better in the hands of a private corporation? But I can't really be on board with that fully because water, last I knew, the huge amounts of it rest in the ground. How do you establish true ownership of that? Or it's in reservoirs or lakes and streams. I have a problem with Nestle be able to get a license and be able to pump millions of gallons out of lakes and make millions of dollars off of that. And the average person who wants to pay a water bill here in Flint, you're getting charged an outrageous amount of money for a few hundred gallons you might be using through the course of a month. So, I mean, okay, I know they have to support the infrastructure, bringing the water to your house. I know they have to have treatment for that water going through the pipes to get into your house in a safe, to be usable. But it's a real kind of a murky area for a libertarian to go totally on board for privatization. And when I heard that he was going to be connected, not him, but all the other ones, former Mayor Dane Walling is on the KWA. All these other people who have been elected officials, and when their involvement started, they're still elected officials. That was a red flag for me. I mean, that there's, it's not this, they're not being the public servants they're going around preaching themselves to be. And I'd like to see that addressed, and maybe I'm being unfair for bringing it up without them being present to answer these questions. But I have had people ask them, and they go a long way about redirecting it. So I've never seen a direct answer to it in myself.
Yeah.
So have you?
No, but to elaborate on your point about Nestle's up in, what is that, Everett, Michigan? That's about the same distance away as Lake Huron. Was that ever considered as a source for water? How come Nestle moves in with a $200 license and they get a license to extract 10 million gallons a day of groundwater? That just wasn't even in the box of options that were considered. Or to go to Bay City on their pipe, which is even closer. But that's all in the past. What we have to do is deal with it now. And what number one is objective is, I'm very concerned that this position should only be occupied by somebody that is capable and technologically competent to handle the engineering issues, the microbiology issues, and the financial issues involved with this position.
I've got to turn my bike on. That'd help. Anyway, because I don't like to get a lot of background noise from the control booth. But I'm just impressed by I'm reading again still from the 411 site. Your experience as a civilian, a citizen, is still more water-oriented than Jeffrey Wright's is. I'll continue with this. And like I said, people, if you want to watch this, check this out yourself, go to the site. I'll put it up, vote411.org. It's put up by the League of Women Voters, right?
That's right.
It maintains the site.
And they vet all these answers too.
Yeah, but this is like you're a state certified drinking water lab owner. You design, build, industrial WWTP. What's that mean?
Wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, I didn't know that. I don't know the nomenclature. Yeah, and then build membrane separation equipment, GE Water, MBR rep through municipal water and wastewater plant sales. So I mean, right there.
GE Water is the biggest supplier of water treatment equipment in the world.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, particularly for drinking water. Yeah, GE Water is big. MBRs are membrane bioreactors. They purify the water when you flush your toilet. The water goes to a wastewater treatment plant And the membrane treatment plant systems supplied by GE Water are one of the best going for that, and particularly if you're looking at recycling water for other purposes.
Another thing that puzzled me too, consultant for reed bed uptake from municipal WWTPs. What is that, the reed bed?
Reed beds are Phragmites. It's a type of a plant, or typha, which is a cattail. So it's plant uptake of nutrients from wastewater. So my association there was as a consultant to redo their.
Okay, sorry for that, folks. We had technical difficulties. We left off talking about reed bed, so we'll continue with that. Okay, thanks again for your patience there, by the way, Robert.
No problem. So these reed beds are Phragmites or typhus. Typhus is like cattails, and these reed beds are used in waste treatment plants to uptake the balance of the waste, or the volatiles, if you would, from the final treatment of a waste plant. In Michigan, we spread that onto farm fields, or otherwise incinerate it or put it in drying beds, and some communities use it for fertilizer. And Phragmites are illegal to transplant in Michigan, so that was part of my challenge. Typhus could be used efficiently. Actually, a little bit of that is being done up in Sheboygan, Michigan. Their outfall goes through a bunch of these plants. So that got me into waste treatment plants from the Indian Nation out in Green Bay, Wisconsin, all over Lincoln, Illinois, Lincoln, Nebraska, even out in California, traveling around to the water and wastewater plants. So I've had a lot of exposure walking through different kinds of treatment processes, oxidation ditches, to the most sophisticated, which is the MBRs.
Now, I'm going to ask this a little bit out of order, because I want to go and continue with your qualifications and experiences, but what's the hardest thing for a waste management group to deal with? Would it be the biologicals, the things coming from humans or animal waste, or is it the industrial chemicals, or is it, are they all problematic in their own way? Which one would you say you'd rather deal with?
The unseen.
Yeah.
The unseen. The ones that you don't see or are even. Well, you go to your water quality report and there's like 15 items on it. So train carloads of birth control pills, estrogen, are being dumped. After you take it, they go down to the waste plant, and that's like a big incubator, and they don't have the capability of treating estrogen. So the estrogen is dumped out into the Flint River, the Shiawassee River, Bay City, comes back around to the drinking water plant, and the drinking water. These things aren't even analyzed. No necessity to report. So how much estrogen are you getting in your drinking water? Well, nobody really knows. How about COVID-19? Same thing. It's been found in your poop. As a matter of fact, Dr. Fauci even said that he was talking about plugs, or I don't know what his deal was, but he was talking about it. And so we know it's there. In fact, I think I heard some local waste plants have found the remnants of COVID in the sewage. And of course, there's no way to treat it. They don't treat it. It goes out into the river and comes back around. Now, who knows if that form is capable of inoculate? We just don't know. But so the unknown is the thing that bothers me. That's not reported in those little 15 to 17 analysis you get in your drinking water. There's a 100,000 different chemicals, and we're only responsible to report on 17 of them.
Well, maybe you're not prepared to answer this, so I realize it might be unfair because it's like we're dealing with your experience as a possibility for getting elected for drain commissioner. But it's interesting to me because the water is like for something you had thought of about the estrogen. But another thing is too, I've heard of like all the antidepressants and anti-anxiety drugs that people on the that have mentioned during the media has mentioned in the drinking. So again, coming from a human source, after it passes through their system, it got to go somewhere, and it goes into the water, and it's recycled, and it's like it doesn't look disgusting. It doesn't have the brown, smells or whatever test, connected to human waste. But the chemicals that come from pharmaceuticals that are in the human waste, they could have, long-term effects. Like, for one thing, like E. coli concentrations in certain beaches were a concern in this area over the years. And E. coli is found in certain strains of it are found in the human digestive tract, the human gut. But this stuff is either totally different strain, but it's an E. coli type of bacteria or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So that stuff right there is something we find in humans. We probably need it there to help break down our foods, I think, don't we? E. coli or?
Oh yeah, absolutely necessary. Coliforms are definitely friends of ours. Really, in the right place. It's sort of like insects are friends until there's too many of them in the wrong place.
Right.
And
so the E. coli, but I didn't think about the estrogen and the birth control pills, but I heard about the antidepressants, anti-anxiety.
Yeah.
Another thing is too, illicit drug you use, like cocaine and water, supply back. I thought it was a concern in some places in Florida at one time, back in the 80s. I think I remember hearing about that. So, that's like a lot of stuff to keep going and keep checking. And currently, like you're saying, there's only just a short list of stuff they look for to give the green light to use.
Now, you asked me what's on my mind the greatest concern, and some people might say, you're anal, Bob, you're too particular about these micro things, these small, well, they're not maybe so small because we just haven't been looking at them and studying them. And I think the bottom line with this discussion is there is a huge potential in water, and we're just touching on one of them. To put Flint on the map as the environmental center of drinking water and get involved with this. There's one guy, Art Woodson, that wants to get a cancer cluster study. Well, what good's it do? But if you tie that into a study of what's actually in the water, what are all those things that we're not looking at? The microparticles in bottled water. 93% of all the bottled water, the little bottles I call fish, have microparticles of plastics. And those are endocrine interrupters. We're talking testosterone, okay? So men, yeah, wake up.
That's some things that people never thought of. When you brought up the estrogen in the water, I was like, well, gotcha moment for me. And I consider myself like the worst case scenario thinker because I'm a real pessimistic person. I'm not a real pleasant person to be around. And people, I'm not real good for people who are politicians because I bring up the stuff that they don't want to. They just want to skate over. They don't want to think about, and that's one thing I didn't think about. So, but another thing is too, we got the source of water is contaminated. We're also getting commercially produced beef and other meats that have antibiotics and artificial growth hormones punched into them to make them pump up really quick. We're eating all that flesh. That stuff doesn't totally get taken away. In the circulatory system or whatever, even draining the blood that still rests in the tissue, all these chemicals. So, now just give me something to keep me more awake at night. So that's great.
It does me because when we have an illegal discharge to the Flint River from the wastewater treatment plant, we have essentially raw waste.
Right.
So what these little things that are in that water, what is, aren't we contributing something there that's other than the fact that we call it E. coli and you might get some mutations of the frogs that we have to worry about maybe, but don't. It's down the river and gone. That's kind of the mentality. But no, there's a lot of things in there, like you mentioned, the drugs and. Most of those pharmaceuticals, if you read the sheets, they're only absorbed 40%, 50%. The rest passes through undigested,
Right.
unabsorbed. And it's just raw drugs going into our water, and who knows where they're going. I think this needs to be looked at. It doesn't cost anything more to do these kind of things. It isn't something, rather than ignore it, let's pay attention to it and bring this as an economic development potential for Genesee County.
Now, a drain commissioner, my opinion, from my understanding of it, and not my opinion, when I was a kid, I asked about what it was, and they said it was to make sure the drainage ditches around agriculture areas was cleared out, and if there was, and they also monitored like over amounts of like farm use chemicals such as like fertilizer and other and herbicides and pesticides, stuff like that. What is exactly the role with a drain commissioner connected to the water plant here in Flint? There are people separate that aren't underneath the directorship of the drain commissioner at the water plant. But what is the role of the drain commissioner when it connects ourselves to the our water supply?
Well, again, Jeff Wright threw up his hands and he said, "I have no responsibility in Flint, Michigan," and he turned his back, and nobody's seen him since.
Yet he's got his office yet.
And his office is
Still sits in it,
at the wastewater plant.
Yeah.
So, but yes, he's responsible for your drinking water, your wastewater, and your water runoff. Those have been in place for years. He's been there 40 years. Tony Ragnow was there 40 years. We're talking 80 years that's been there. And that should be automatic, right? I mean, after 80 years, shouldn't you be able to figure that out and clean the ditches and make sure that things are being done and meeting qualifications and criterias and like that? So those I look at as things in the past that should be routine. And they're not, because we still have spring floods and discharges, and we still have water issues. So a little tightening of the ship there. What's my number 2 item?
Oh, gee, I mean, okay, here, I've got to pull that up.
Did Jeff have any numbers? Did he have anything proactive on there? I don't know, but just give me number 2. What's
for
number
him,
2?
I mean, or for him, you mean, or you?
No, on my side. What's number 2?
Okay, number 2, you got a lot of well, there's experience. First was education, experience, and then community involvement. Is like
Oh no, I meant my number 2.
Oh,
Under what do I consider important things to be
okay.
working on as
Okay, I'll
drain
get up to that.
commissioner?
Well, actually, okay, I'll go scroll down further. I was just looking at the qualification side.
Yeah, it's long.
Okay, here's the number 1 for the right end. It says working through the Association of Drain Commissioners put in place requirements, college degree in a natural science, business acumen, EPA certifications in lead engineering skills, to this a health and environmental responsibility. Number 2 would be take away party affiliation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this position should not be political.
That's exactly right.
No Democrats, no Republicans. This should be non-political, based on your background, your skill base to do something.
Well, see, no, I don't know if you could want to venture out of this, this little area we're talking about, the concentrated area. But I have my opinion, because I've seen other cities that don't have mayors, they have city managers. And I wonder if there'd be a great benefit going that route instead of what we're currently doing in the cities now, where they have popular elected mayors. And they say that Flint's not supposed to be partisan affiliation or whatever, which is a little crap. We all knew they are, although they are. So what do you think about that? Do you think that'd be like the same situation? They should be better going just based upon qualifications and experience and nothing to do with party affiliation, or would you want to not venture too much out of this narrowly defined area?
Well, it's difficult in Flint because, or Genesee County, we're a Democrat county.
Right.
So there hasn't been really too many, if any, Republicans or Libertarians or Green Party or anything else. It's check the Democrat box and fold up the paper and mail it. So that's part of the issue there, is that if you have incompetence and there's party politics, and you end up, I'm not saying Jeff's an incompetent, but I'm saying if you end up with somebody, just look at, when you get to that site, go down through it and say, this is a $600,000 buying decision. That's what Jeff Wright makes over the 4-year period of time, plus his expenses, $600,000. So that's, when you cast your ballot, that's what you're doing. You're purchasing what you see on that site.
That's a very pragmatic way of looking at it. Very pragmatic. That's like eye-opening too. It's like the revelation time for many people, I bet too, because it's like that's. I thought about that too. It's like the qualifications. Look at these guys' qualifications. Look at this other guy's qualifications or person's qualifications, and what are you willing to pay for how long, and what kind of decision-making processes are they going to engage in that might be costing you more money down the road because they just simply didn't cover the bases. And I think that's
Yeah.
exactly what it gets down to this
600
water
million,
crisis.
or I heard 1.5 billion, but yeah, what's that costing the state? See, that would have been totally eliminated, really, going through all these years, and that's the other thing that really bugs me. And that's another thing connected to this partisan politics. And I've talked to some people out there, and they seem to agree once they see it. So thank you for having the ability to present this out to the people today.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that I like to create qualified people in any position, and unfortunately, in this country, we place too much of an emphasis on party affiliation. Remember, when I was a kid, people would always tell me that in America, it's great. Anybody can become president. And then you see who gets elected a local officialdom, and you can see it start dawning on you, anybody becoming the president might not necessarily be in the path you want to take or encourage because there's no qualifications. I think the council manager, council people should have better qualifications than simply be able to get so many names on a ballot, on a petition to get them to run. I think there should be some background in business. I think there should be some kind of background in maybe a related field. Like, let's face it, a modern day city has got a myriad of problems to deal with and or issues to address. And I think you would have people who are nurses and people who are maybe dentists, people who are maybe have been a trash collector and they know how the management things run, the waste management. I think that different input would be better than just simply politically active people. And I think that's what I think in Genesee County. And another thing is I see this issue is we recycle politicians. This person becomes a city council member, and then later on they become a state rep. There's no qualifications, and then when they walk away from the positions they're in, they haven't made a significant difference. Nothing remarkable has occurred underneath their watch, and yet they get pushed in a higher position. Mm-hmm. And that's really nerve-wracking to see that happen.
Somewhere buried in all of that too, I have to mentor the follow-up person to train people to learn the skills that the drain commissioner might be in touch with, and plus, if you see a need for wastewater treatment operators, well, let's get them trained. The drain commissioner's right there. Let's do it. What's number 3?
Okay, number 3 is improve people services impacting health implications, cluster studies, and integration of other health agencies. So I mean that's been lacking from what my knowledge is of that currently. Mm-hmm. I don't hear any of that.
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit. There's a divide between the county health department, the I guess it'd be called Eagle Lab down in Lansing, and certainly somebody has to be a great salesman for the county to get these things implemented and bring them into the county. Badly needed jobs and technology influx of new things, and water is just such a big market. It has all kinds of opportunities, and we've just been out to lunch.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm talking to you about this and discovering more of this, things that haven't been addressed, chemicals we haven't monitored for, the lack of training, the lack of mentorship. It's like you're realizing more. I think that more people are going to be hearing this are going to be really enlightened because, I mean, they simply haven't thought of these different facets They haven't thought of these different ramifications and consequences. And that's quite eye-opening for people. I think this is going to be an interesting conversation for a lot of people to listen into, because I don't think it's had been. I mean, basically, you see a blurb for Jeff Wright on TV. Jeff Wright, proven experience or something like that. I don't know what he actually is, but something like that. And he's got pictures of him, maybe pictures of him directing something that looks like he's talking to in a group or whatever. Him, and it was like his shirt sleeves rolled up. And that's all you see on a political ad. There should be more discourse.
Meat and potatoes.
Now, what?
Meat and potatoes.
Yeah,
Give me the meat and potatoes.
definitely.
Yeah, from here on. I don't care about that. We got GLEWA, we got KW8, we'll deal with it. What's gonna happen from this point on?
Yeah, because we'll go down to the number, the 4 on the list. Four. Yeah, redirect the goals of the GLWA and the KWA board. What do you mean by that?
Redirect the objectives of the KWA and the GLEWA board. These are the two boards that are handling the water issues here in all of southeastern Michigan. So their primary concern is units sold, the spreadsheets. They spend most of the time on that. While there's other issues, some of which I don't want to talk about here, but there's other issues that they should be accountable for and be proactive in doing.
Okay, now we'll move on to number 5. Generate negative entropy. Now that one interests me. It intrigued me when I saw that. What does that mean exactly?
Negative entropy, you normally think of it as positive, but it's sucked back in, so they call it negative. In an organization, think of an organization as a box, and it's closed and it's got a hole on each end. So if the box is an organization and it's making shoes, as an input, they need laces, leather, inner soles, rubber, all these things, people, as an input. Certainly some money and investment. The inputs go into the box. Attached to the box, you've got accounting and taxes and payroll and all those things. But in the box, those inputs transform themselves. And they go out of the box, out of the hole on the opposite side, and that is the output. So what is the output of a company that makes shoes? People would say shoes. No, it isn't. It's style. People don't buy shoes, they buy style. So style, along with the money, is the negative entropy. It comes back around as another input. And it creates more jobs because now you need more of everything, including the people, to transform into better. So this organism is floating around in a primordial soup. And there's other organisms out there like that, or organizations, that are doing other things to get negative entropy. Making cars or churches. The negative entropy of a church, you've got the inputs, the transformation process, the outputs. The negative entropy is to make you feel good. That's what brings you back. And it's important to bring you back. Herein lies the key to economic recovery for the city of Flint and Genesee County. That is Katzenbach's model of organizational behavior. And without an understanding of that, it's fluff. We've got a lot of fluff and marshmallows floating around. Nothing that addresses the real issue of this organization.
I mean, I'm just trying to grasp all that, because it's a lot. And it's like something I think there's like a great, I got to dissect that more. I mean, I got to be quite honest.
I wrote that up when, it's probably 3 years ago, and I gave the write-up to the Committee of Economic Development for the City of Flint. Never heard back from them. Never was invited in to give, what do you mean? It just was, whoop. That's the key, though.
Right. I mean, I'd like to try to flesh that out more in my own head, have a conversation with people that listen to this interview. I think that there would spark a lot of conversation in that, because, I mean, I never thought of it that way. I mean, and I have a very strong interest in economics, but I never looked at it in that way that there's like that negative entropy. I never even heard that term. So
Yeah.
I'm owning up to my ignorance.
Graduate school business.
Okay. And that's another thing is that that's our local politicians basically get by because they're, I'm going to say this, and a lot of people are going to anger people, I think. They were like established families. They all worked in the GM factories. They were like good old boys, belonged to AEW, Democratic Party, drank beer together. And they didn't really have any training. Okay, it's good to bring people on board who are from the area. They know the problems. But also, the solutions they tend to grasp are ones that are all that not that are proven ready or proven workable. And they just keep on redoing the same thing over and over again. Basically, it's like it's a loop that we can't break out of. And you bring that up, and people just like, well, they're a Democrat, I'm going to vote for a Democrat. And it's like, or this person, I knew his dad when they were over at the factories, so they don't want to break out of that loop. But that's just an interesting way. I'm going to Google that later to see more on that, because it just seems like an intriguing concept on its own. So anyway, the next point was like reduce laboratory reporting time, update SPCs. What does that mean?
Well, statistical process controls. Right now, the people in this community know that Flint has not been successful in pulling the right samples when and having them turned into the government expediently. So I think each of the labs and all these water plants need to have an inspection and see where the bottlenecks are and the weaknesses, so that when, including the county health department and the Eagle lab, so when people send a sample in, they expect to get a result back. If the result is a hazardous result, in the case of lead, they should be getting additional communications and correspondences as to how to respond to that as a health issue. It's just, we're lacking that leap.
Yeah, I just definitely see that being warned earlier is going to allow you to address the problem more thoroughly before you have to go into panic mode.
Like I said earlier, under my breath, sort of maybe, if I had, I always say I get no respect. If this had gotten out, if people responded, this would have just never happened over all these years. This has been 20 some odd years I've been talking about this. So again, thank you for the opportunity to bring this in front of people. It makes my heart sad and happy at the same time.
Now, the number 7 point is groom future candidates, technicians, and engineers. You briefly alluded to that earlier.
Yeah.
So would you want to care to go into more depth or what?
I have an interest. I've been seeking I formed a nonprofit, a minority nonprofit, and have been seeking a grant to train folks for licensed operators in both the industrial markets and water markets and wastewater markets. Sadly, the people my age are retired and they're not available, and the young people aren't picking it up. These are good paying jobs. They start out at like $45,000, and after a year you can get your next exam under your belt, which we can help out with. So there's an opportunity. There's opportunities in water. This is another economic development opportunity for Genesee County, to have that school right here in the city, and create a new image for Genesee County, being able to solve internally the dire consequences and incidents of this lead issue.
I mean, would you want to see that tied to maybe one of the local colleges or universities or something? That program, or
their people have volunteered to, come in and do lectures,
Okay.
and like that.
So we covered quite a bit. I mean, I'm just really impressed by your responses by the way, and some of the stuff you brought up. I have never heard any candidate bring about. I've never heard any local news broadcaster, and quite again, to be honest, they're trying to get in a 5-minute interview in between news, weather, and sports. So I mean, they're pressed for time. They can't really elaborate. So this is what we're not concerned about commercial concerns. We should be, but we're not. And so we get a chance to flush out the conversation
This
quite
is
a bit.
great because you're able to carry a thought through,
Right.
so
And it's
that
like,
people
that's,
understand it.
see, and I'd like to get more people to come in here because I think I could be a fair person. I mean, when they bring up stuff that I might not agree with, but they explain it, I can maybe see what they see as merit in it. But I think that the water crisis is basically, some people just think it was just something that dropped out of the air. I remember hearing rumblings way before what we call the water crisis happened. And my own grandfather, probably in the 60s and 70s, was already, crying out that this was going to happen, this was going to happen, that was going to happen. And people just rolled their eyes, and he's just a crank, he's a weirdo, which he was. But anyway, it's like some people are just not, they're just ignored. They're just like dismissed, and we pay the price later.
Yeah.
So go on to number 8, track waste outfall species, endocrine interrupters, and lead. Now, the endocrine interrupters we already talked about briefly too, about the
And the
estrogen.
lead's in the wastewater too. So
Well-
you can determine the health of an organization like the city from the lead in the wastewater, right?
Okay, yeah.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah.
It makes all the common sense in the world. Because if you're uptaking lead, you're pooping it out, it ends up in the poop plant, and you can analyze it. So if there's an uptake there, you got a problem.
It's like say okay, where'd it come from? Well, the people. That's the you can't track the individuals, but you can say, wait a minute, we got to address this. These
Yeah.
people are pooping more lead. I mean,
But
it's not an elegant thing to talk about.
No, but it's
not polite.
so simple. It's simplistic,
Right.
But no, you gotta check, blood and water and have Virginia Tech come in and do all of this. Well, it was funded. That's fine. It's better than nothing. But nobody considered what I just talked about.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've never heard anybody monitoring the stool samples basically for these different things,
Yeah.
and that would be interesting. I mean, because you could probably see a trend that could be alarming, and you can address it before it gets even worse. I mean, that's what the thing is. Somebody fell asleep. I mean, but then again, I never known anybody to even suggest that, to my
Yeah,
knowledge.
Yeah.
The waste management, basically, to make sure the E. coli and other stuff is out of there, that the biologicals, and then they move on.
You have to have the skills and be a lateral thinker.
Lateral thing.
You could have the skills, and if you're not thinking all the time and seeing what you're looking at, you don't put these things together. And that's what I call a lateral thinker.
Right. I can see that because there's like current other disciplines. You're like on the same level, and you could see draw from them. So I can see that guy reaching over, pulling that over. I can almost see that image of that. No, I think that you're making some great valid points here. We'll move on though. Solve lead issues based on my EPA lead training and experience. Now, how many years do you serve with EPA?
I've obtained every certification that the EPA offers in lead. So you have lead inspection, where you use equipment like an XRF machine and you shoot walls and windowsills and dishes and stuff like that, and do a lead inspection. And the next certification is lead health risk assessment, and you do similar analysis, but you tie it into what is the health risk of this environment and who is being exposed to this environment, and what recommendations are you putting in the report to lower their risk of becoming lead poisoned or EBL, elevated blood lead level. So the next one, which is crucial to our pipe removal process, is called EPA Project Design. So a project designer in the lead industry would be writing up the project for removing the pipes. For instance, I'm very concerned about additional spreading of lead because of the way that we're removing the pipes. We started out calling it fast start, and you go in with a dozer or whatever and you dig it out. Well, this pipe has like 50,000 micrograms per kilogram of dirt around it. You know, it's been there for 100 years, and all this lead has been leaching out into that dirt. So the pipes are dug out, and shooken, and hitting with a shovel and cut, and all this stuff goes into this dirt, and then the dirt is put in a pile, and the lead pipes are thrown. These are hazardous materials now, and there's requirements for handling hazardous material. So, because a lot of stuff will slough off these pipes. So now this dirt, when you're all done, is pushed back in the hole. And if you took let's say the hole was 6 cubic yards, and you had 50,000 milligrams per kilogram, you do the math, you end up with 500 micrograms per kilogram on the surface. So every time somebody goes over there with a lawnmower, he's spitting up lead dust, or the kids out there playing. So I'm concerned about that. So the project designer, if you had that discipline, that's what his job is. He designs that project so those kinds of things don't happen. So when I say additional work has to be done, yes, now we got to go back and study what's happened to the dirt, what's the surface contaminants, what is the health risk associated with what they've done. Maybe it's worse. And the question has been raised. We've replaced the pipes, but how come our kids still have lead? Well, here's an answer for you.
So, I mean, I think you're so thorough. I mean, I was just looking down on the list here, and I like the way you wrap this up on the list of, that's available on the vote 4111. Nothing remedial here. Please reread. Are you satisfied? I think that's a great way. But also, I want to go think, we do want to do a demonstration yet, or what? That demonstration you had in mind?
Well, I could, if you
Yeah.
have time. I don't want to lose the interest of the public when this thing gets long.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
But-
Just switch that, turn that microphone a little around that direction, okay? Or pull it a little
Okay.
closer to you, all right?
Okay,
Now switch to that camera.
okay,
Okay, ready?
yeah.
Okay. So
I mentioned a microgram, okay? 1 gram equals, and I'm gonna pour 1 gram about, I'm not gonna weigh it because we're on the news thing here, but there's about 1 gram of salt. Now, that could be lead sulfate, lead fluoride, lead chloride, lead nitrate, metallic lead, who knows? But that's 1 gram of lead. So how many micrograms is that? Well, it happens to be 1 million. So 1 million micrograms equals 1 gram. So let's find out how much, we can look at 1 gram, but let's try to look at a microgram. So I'm going to take half of that and push it over here. So now we have 500,000 micrograms. 500,000 micrograms right here. So now I'm going to cut it in half again. Some people are better at this than I am. I've never done this. So now you've got 250,000 micrograms. And we continue the process of cutting that in half. You got 125 micrograms. Now you've got basically, let's say, 67,000 micrograms. So in your drinking water, The specification, we're trying to get it lowered. It used to be 15, 5 or 15, depending on where you are. And so we're looking at a single digit number we're looking for. So now we've got, let's say 35,000, just round numbers, 35,000 micrograms. And we're going to cut that in half. There we have, let's call it 16,000 micrograms, 1,000. And we cut that in half. And you've got that, I don't know if you can see it now.
Yeah,
That's 8,000 micrograms,
you can see it.
8,000. You're gonna cut that in half. You've got 4,000 micrograms, and you're going to cut that in half. And now you got 2,000, and then there's 1,000. Can you still see it?
Very, not very, no, just see kind of
Yeah, there's only one crystal left.
Yeah.
So you've got 1,000 micrograms right there. So that would be 100 times. So here's a liter of water. So if you were able to scoop that up, and I'm just going to make believe I've scooped it up, and I've put it in there and filled it up to almost 1,000. That's about a quart, or that's a liter if this beaker was full. That's the size of the beaker. So that would be 1,000 micrograms per liter, and you can't see it.
right.
So this is why, one of the reasons why I say you can't filter something that's dissolved, even though it's a particulate there. And let's talk about particulates. Particulates are in the pipes. And you can filter a particulate as long as the filter is a smaller absolute pore size than the particulate that's coming into it. So it depends on how small that is. Well, if it's dissolved, it's no longer a particulate. It fits between the water molecules. That's why you can't see it. So the water molecules are bouncing around, and the lead is in between it. And the water molecules, in a way, are actually bigger than the lead particles in there, so you can't see it. So you can't filter it. If you were to get a filter that was small enough, you wouldn't get any water through it.
Wow. That's pretty real good as a demonstration of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
What
it's
you're
a
talking
real small number, really, really, really tiny.
Could you guys just slide over back to the right though, so I
Yeah.
get you in the other camera there, so, sorry about that. There you go. Anyway, thanks. No, I think that was a great demonstration. I think people saw that. And another thing is, it's like, I don't think that was explained to people during all the water crisis in that terms.
Yeah.
I really don't. So, I mean, some people might have looked it up, maybe some people had a background in chemistry, high school or whatever, but I don't think the bulk of the population actually knew what this was about. This minuteness of that you're talking about. And then you mix with the water, and let's face it, lead's probably been around in the water for a longer time than we were alerted to. So, I mean, it's been a longer running problem than I think we are addressing. And I think it's because of an ineptness and a poorly trained people and lackadaisical attitude. And they simply said, well, the bases are covered, that's it, that's good enough. I'll lick in a promise, go on. And that's just, we're seeing it, how it had a catastrophic effect on many people.
It breaks my heart.
Right.
Breaks my heart, it really does.
So anyway, I think we'll wrap this conversation up, and I really enjoyed the conversation though. And I like the demonstration, and I invite you to come back on a regular basis. I mean, even if you don't get elected, and I'm hoping you will, even though you have the long shot because of being the write-in, I'd
Get the
really,
word out. You people, you gotta get the word out.
so anyway,
Friends, neighbors, and relatives.
we'll put this on, All Points TV on Facebook, on YouTube channel.
Nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan, yep. And I'll show that little thing again, and people want to contact you, where's the best way to contact you, Robert?
Well, I'm on Facebook as Robert Stewart.
Okay.
My email is soschemist@gmail.com. SOS like emergency, and then chemist, CHEMIST @gmail.com.
Well, thank you again very much for coming in and talking about this, and I encourage people to check this man out, and look at it, go to the vote, let's see, vote411.org. I get so many organizations in here, I get confused, because I've done a lot of interviews on this, so I got to make sure I'm speaking it and I'm not giving the wrong information for the wrong group or whatever. So anyway, you did a great job, I think, presenting yourself, and I'm impressed by your background. But then again, when you came in with Lisa Quaid few years back, I was impressed by your background. So I mean, people really consider this write-in candidate. He's not a crank. He's not doing it just for a lark. I think he's genuinely a better prepared person than one we currently have in there. So that's my endorsement.
So we've taken the better part of an hour and a half even. So I got one vote in an hour and a half. There's not enough hour and a halves between, for the next 77
November.
days to do it, to reach everybody. So it's going to be up to you folks.
So anyway, again, thank you, and I'm just really kind of like amazed by your answers. I think you're better prepared than I've seen the other candidates, any of the other race, and this one's more crucial, I think, for me than the city councilor or state rep or whatever. I think this should be more crucial, more critical.
This is.
So thanks again.
Thank you.